Okay, I'm going to start with a statement that might sound a little unsettling. The very organ you are using to understand my voice right now, your brain, it's lying to you. Constantly.
And look, this isn't some philosophical riddle. We're actually going to walk through the architecture of this deception, piece by piece. I'm going to show you exactly how your brain pulls it off.
So let's start with the first piece of the puzzle. It's this idea that your perception of the world is like looking into a distorted mirror. The reality you experience, well, it's not a pure reflection of what's actually out there.
I mean, it's a fundamental instinct, right? You see a chair, you believe a chair is there. You hear a sound, you assume that sound is real. We all operate on the basic assumption that our senses are giving us the straight story.
But what if that window to the world isn't made of clear glass? What if it's more like a funhouse mirror? You know, the kind that fragments and warps the image. The truth is, your brain isn't just passively receiving information, it's actively interpreting it, filtering it, and completely reassembling it into what you call reality. And this gets to the absolute heart of it. Every sight, every sound, every sensation is just raw data, and your brain actively constructs an experience out of it. So you aren't really seeing reality, you're seeing your brain's model of it, and that model is built with some very specific programming. So, how does this whole process of building reality actually work? Well, the distortions aren't random. They are systematic, predictable patterns, kind of like glitches in the code of our consciousness. You should think of them as shortcuts your brain takes to process an absolutely overwhelming amount of information. There's actually a term for this, cognitive deception. It's the system of mental shortcuts, what you've probably heard called cognitive biases, that our brain uses all the time. But get this, they're not mistakes. They're an efficient, if not always accurate, way for our brains to make sense of the world, and fast.
The process is surprisingly simple when you break it down. First, you get raw, objective data coming in through your senses. Then, your brain applies a mental shortcut. That's the glitch. And what comes out on the other side is your subjective, and yeah, often distorted, personal version of reality.
Now, this process doesn't just mess with what you see or hear. It dramatically affects how you think. Let's take a look at how a simple, totally neutral thought can be transformed into an emotionally charged warning. Think about it like this. An initial thought is like a clean little thought bubble. For example, my boss sent me a one-word email. That's it. That's the fact. But then, the cognitive deception kicks in, and that little bubble morphs into a giant, flashing red warning sign screaming, "My boss is furious with me, and I'm probably going to get fired." The fact hasn't changed one bit, but your brain's interpretation of it? Completely different story. So what's the deal here? What is the mechanism that causes that to happen? Why does our brain have this built-in alarm system that seems to love turning objective data into subjective fear? This brings us to the most important part of this whole explainer. The reason this system exists isn't because it's a flaw in our design, it's actually a fundamental part of our mental architecture. As they say in the tech world, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Just let that sink in for a second. All of these biases, these mental shortcuts, these wild emotional transformations, they are all part of the intended design. Your brain is working exactly as it was meant to.
So think about how all these pieces fit together. The distorted mirror of our perception is what creates our subjective world. That distortion is caused by the glitch effects, which are just our built-in cognitive biases. And our thoughts become morphing bubbles the second our emotions hijack our logic. It's all part of one big, seamless system, powered by this deep neural network that runs the entire show without you ever even noticing.
So, if our brain is fundamentally an unreliable narrator, constantly editing our reality on the fly, what does that mean for us? How do we live with that knowledge? It really comes down to accepting this one simple but really powerful truth. Your brain's primary job is not to give you an accurate picture of the world. Its job is to keep you alive. And this is the ultimate why. That thought that morphed from a simple fact into a full-blown fear, that's your brain's ancient survival code just doing its thing. It would rather you be needlessly afraid and safe 100 times than be calm and get caught by a predator that one time. This system is designed purely for survival, not for seeing objective truth. Acknowledging this doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're human. The real question is a personal one. Now that you can see the strings and you know the narrator is unreliable, you have a new kind of power. The only question is, what will you do with it? How will you choose to see the world?